We all make mistakes from time to time, like when I started this channel, or when I stole honey from Winnie the Pooh. But some mistakes cannot so easily be forgotten. Some mistakes ruin lives, or even entire countries. A good example is when Russia sold Alaska to the US. A gigantic landmass with a tiny population, the Russian Empire saw little value in owning it, so in 1867 they sold it for the low price of $7.2 million. In today's money it's more like $150 million, but even so, it's not much for such a huge territory. American newspapers at the time criticized the deal, claiming it was a waste of money. Then 3 decades later, gold was found in Alaska, and after the gold rush and oil boom, so in return for their $7.2 million investment, America has received more than $200 billion. But compared to some of the other mistakes I'm about to reveal, selling Alaska was a good deal for Russia. In 1971, the biggest and most expensive party of all time was thrown. It was thrown by the Shah of Iran, who ruled over the country as an absolute monarch. 1970 was the 2500th anniversary of the Persian Empire's foundation, so he wanted to do something big. And when I say big, I mean stupid. The location chosen was an ancient historical city, which was in the middle of the desert. So to make it more appropriate, a tent city was built, each with a grand interior filled with luxury goods. Most of the guests were foreign dignitaries, and the Shah wanted to prove how modern and wealthy Iran was. 18 tons of food was flown in from Europe, as were 50,000 songbirds. 250 Mercedes-Benz limousines were bought just to pick up guests from the airport, and among other festivities, a massive parade of soldiers dressed in historical uniforms was organised. When all was said and done, the cost of the party was gigantic. In today's money, it is estimated at more than $600 million US. That's a lot for one party, especially with Iran's economy at the time not being great. So in following years, opponents of the Shah used it to argue he was corrupt and out of touch with ordinary Iranians. It was a major strand of the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which not only abolished the Iranian Empire, but forced the Shah to flee the country. That's a high price to pay just to impress some nerds. The world's biggest party is an undeniably funny way to destroy a country. Less funny though is our next mistake, which might have caused World War II. It was 1894, and a group of children were playing in the small German town of Passau. Because children are idiots, one of them fell into the local river. The river was ice cold and the current strong, so the child very nearly drowned. But luckily a local priest was nearby, who jumped in without a second thought, rescuing the young boy. So this seems like a noble act, and a heartwarming story in general. However, the child that well-meaning priest rescued was a young Adolf Hitler. And on that subject, the Germans made a huge mistake when they invaded the Soviet Union. Invading Russia is not the mistake I refer to. Actually, it's something much more boring. Unlike France, the Soviets had few cars and terrible roads. So the German plan was to take the country by rail, simply sliding their own trains onto Soviet rail lines. But they overlooked one ridiculous detail. It turns out the Soviets had a 6-foot railway gauge, so the train tracks were 1 foot further apart than in Germany. This meant that every meter of Soviet railway had to be physically moved before German trains could advance. Considering the German plan relied on a rapid advance, this was really not good. It's unclear how differently the war could have gone if not for this hindrance, but considering what a minor detail it was on paper, it's one of the dumbest mistakes ever made. NASA once lost an expensive satellite in space, all thanks to a tiny technical mistake. It was 1998, and thanks to government pressure on spending, NASA outsourced a lot of their operations to private companies. One of them was Lockheed Martin, who used a different system of measurement from NASA. While NASA used the metric system, Lockheed used a system called United States Customary Units. Since NASA was American, Lockheed assumed they would use the latter, but obviously this turned out to be a mistake. You're probably wondering why they didn't just ask NASA which system to use. And to be honest, I'm wondering that myself. But anyway, the satellite was built, being launched in December of 1998. At first all went well, only on getting close to Mars did the problems begin. For a satellite to reach another planet, it needs to make a series of adjustments as it floats through space. But thanks to a calculation mismatch, it descended too close to Mars and lost contact with Earth. So a tiny mistake ended up ruining an entire Mars mission. Genghis Khan was one of the most brutal men from history. The list of atrocities committed under his rule is ridiculous, from the destruction of entire cities to filling 9 large sacks full of severed human ears. So deliberately angering this man would be, let's be honest, a terrible mistake. But that's exactly what one man did. His name was Inalchuq, and he was governor of the wealthy city of Otrar. Otrar was part of a vast empire roughly the same size as Genghis Khan's. Inalchuq was the uncle of its emperor and felt safe to do whatever he liked. In 1218, a group of Mongol traders arrived in Otrar, and Inalchuq wasn't having it. Immediately, he accused them of being spies, and with the approval of his nephew, executed them all. Seemingly for no reason, he executed more than 400 Mongols. And unfortunately for Inalchuq, one of them escaped, soon reporting back to Genghis Khan. Amazingly, Genghis Khan responded tactfully, sending 3 diplomats to meet with Inalchuq. But again the Mongols were met with violence. One diplomat was beheaded, and the other 2 had their beards forcefully removed. This did not go down well. Purposefully or not, Inalchuq had provoked Genghis Khan to attack. Khan raised a huge invasion force, taking the time to gather information on the enemy and build siege weapons. After 5 long months, Otrar fell to the Mongols, its population being murdered or enslaved. Inalchuq himself was taken prisoner. It is said he was killed by having molten silver poured into his ears and eyes. And the slaughter didn't stop there. Larger cities soon followed, resulting in the complete collapse of the empire. It's unknown how many people died, but some estimate 15 million. And that is why you do not deliberately anger Genghis Khan.
Where the story was set, so went the cameras. The Great Wall of China, the splendor of an emperor's palace. Here indeed are scenes of unequaled beauty and spectacle unparalleled in any motion picture.